Coffee habit could be playing a bigger role than you think, so stay with me because what you add to it may completely change the story. As we age, the body becomes more sensitive to internal stress signals, and one of the main compounds in coffee, caffeine, stimulates the central nervous system and increases the release of cortisol, often called the stress hormone. Harvard Health explains that caffeine activates the adrenal glands, which temporarily boosts alertness but also raises cortisol levels, especially when consumed on an empty stomach. The Mayo Clinic similarly notes that caffeine can increase blood pressure and stimulate the nervous system, effects that may be more pronounced in older adults. Cortisol itself is not harmful in small, natural waves. In fact, it helps regulate energy and inflammation. However, when levels rise repeatedly without adequate recovery, such as drinking strong black coffee first thing in the morning without food, it can signal the body to prioritize immediate survival functions rather than long-term repair processes like hair growth. Hair follicles operate in cycles: growth, anagen, transition, catagen, and rest, telogen. According to research indexed by the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and available through PubMed, elevated stress hormones can shift more hairs into the resting phase, which may contribute to increased shedding over time. This does not mean coffee directly causes hair loss, but it highlights how repeated physiological stressors can influence the hair cycle indirectly. In seniors, this matters even more because aging naturally shortens the growth phase of hair and reduces follicle size. When cortisol is consistently elevated, blood flow may be temporarily redirected toward essential organs and away from peripheral areas like the scalp, limiting optimal nutrient delivery. Hair follicles are metabolically active structures. They require amino acids, iron, zinc, vitamin D, and other micronutrients to function efficiently. If coffee is consumed alone and replaces breakfast, the body may lack the building blocks needed for keratin production, the protein that forms hair strands. Another factor involves nutrient absorption. Some studies discussed in NIH resources indicate that compounds in coffee can reduce the absorption of non-heme iron when consumed alongside iron-rich foods. Iron deficiency is one of the most common contributors to diffuse hair thinning, particularly in older adults. While moderate coffee intake is generally considered safe for most individuals, timing and context matter. The Cleveland Clinic emphasizes that balanced meals help stabilize blood sugar and hormone fluctuations, which in turn support overall tissue health. Drinking plain coffee without protein or healthy fats may cause a rapid rise in alertness, followed by a dip in energy, potentially increasing cravings and physiological stress responses. Over time, this pattern may subtly influence inflammatory pathways and hormonal balance, both of which play roles in hair health. It is important to clarify that this information is educational and not a medical diagnosis or treatment plan. Individual responses to caffeine vary widely depending on genetics, medications, cardiovascular health, and existing conditions. Seniors taking medications for blood pressure, heart rhythm, or anxiety should consult their healthcare provider before modifying caffeine habits. However, the broader concept supported by reputable institutions such as Harvard Health and Mayo Clinic is that lifestyle patterns, sleep quality, stress regulation, nutrient intake, and circulation collectively influence how well the body maintains tissues, including hair. When coffee is consumed thoughtfully as part of a nourishing routine rather than as a standalone stimulant, its potential stress impact may be balanced by adequate nutritional support. As we move past the age of 60, hair thinning becomes more common not only because of genetics, but because of predictable biological shifts that affect the hair growth cycle. Hair grows in three main phases: the anagen phase, active growth, the catagen phase, transition, and the telogen phase, resting and shedding. According to research available through the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and PubMed, aging shortens the anagen phase and increases the proportion of hairs in the telogen phase. This means fewer hairs are actively growing at any given time, and more are resting or shedding. In simple terms, imagine a garden where fewer plants are sprouting, while more are sitting dormant. Over time, the garden appears thinner even if nothing dramatic has happened overnight. The follicles themselves also shrink with age, producing finer, lighter strands. This process is gradual and natural, but lifestyle factors can either support or strain it. One key factor is protein intake. Hair is primarily composed of keratin, a structural protein built from amino acids. The Cleveland Clinic and Harvard Health both emphasize that adequate dietary protein is essential for maintaining tissues, including hair, skin, and nails. Seniors often consume less protein than they realize, especially at breakfast. Skipping balanced meals and relying on coffee or toast alone can limit the steady supply of amino acids needed for follicle activity. When the body senses inadequate protein intake, it prioritizes vital organs over hair production, since hair is not essential for survival. Over time, this can contribute to slower regrowth and increased fragility. Iron status also plays a role. The NIH notes that iron deficiency is associated with diffuse hair shedding, particularly in older adults. Iron helps red blood cells carry oxygen, and hair follicles are highly sensitive to oxygen supply because they are metabolically active structures. When iron levels are suboptimal, follicles may shift prematurely into the resting phase. Similarly, vitamin D, discussed in NIH and Mayo Clinic resources, supports many cellular processes, including those involved in hair follicle cycling. Seniors are at higher risk for low vitamin D due to reduced skin synthesis and limited sun exposure. While deficiency does not automatically cause hair loss, suboptimal levels can influence overall tissue function. Hormonal shifts are another piece of the puzzle. Both men and women experience changes in hormone levels with age. Reduced estrogen in women after menopause and gradual shifts in androgens in men can influence follicle size and growth duration. According to medical overviews published through reputable institutions such as the Mayo Clinic, these hormonal changes contribute to pattern thinning. Stress compounds the effect. Elevated cortisol, as discussed in NIH literature, can disrupt the hair cycle and increase shedding several weeks or months after a stressful event. This delay often confuses people because the trigger and the visible shedding are separated by time. Sleep quality and circulation further influence scalp health. During deep sleep, the body performs repair and regenerative processes. Chronic sleep disruption, which becomes more common with aging, may indirectly affect hair health through hormonal imbalance and inflammation. The World Health Organization, WHO, and other public health bodies emphasize that physical activity supports cardiovascular function. Good circulation ensures that oxygen and nutrients reach peripheral tissues, including the scalp. Without efficient blood flow, follicles may not receive optimal nourishment. A common mistake is assuming thinning hair is purely cosmetic or inevitable. While aging is unavoidable, supportive habits matter. Focusing only on external treatments while ignoring internal nutrition, sleep, and stress management overlooks the biological foundation of hair growth. Research consistently shows that hair health reflects overall systemic balance. By understanding how protein intake, micronutrient status, hormone shifts, stress levels, and circulation interact, seniors can make informed lifestyle choices that support healthier-looking hair over time. The idea of adding a protein source, such as collagen peptides or another protein-based addition to coffee, is rooted in basic physiology rather than trend-driven advice. Hair strands are primarily composed of keratin, a fibrous protein built from amino acids. According to the Cleveland Clinic and Harvard Health, adequate protein intake is essential for maintaining body tissues, including hair, skin, and nails. When dietary protein is insufficient, the body prioritizes vital organs like the heart and brain over structures like hair follicles. In practical terms, if amino acids are limited, the body may slow non-essential processes, including hair production. This does not mean adding protein to coffee will reverse hair thinning on its own, but it reflects a broader nutritional principle. Consistent protein intake supports tissue maintenance, especially in older adults who are at higher risk of under-consuming protein due to reduced appetite or simplified meals. Collagen is one type of protein that contains amino acids such as glycine and proline, which contribute to connective tissue structure. While keratin and collagen are different proteins, Collagen supplementation provides amino acids that the body can use according to its needs. Research indexed in PubMed suggests that overall protein adequacy, not just one specific type, is associated with healthier hair structure and reduced fragility. Seniors often drink coffee as a standalone breakfast, which provides stimulation but no building blocks. By pairing coffee with protein, whether through food or a protein addition, individuals create a more balanced metabolic response. The Mayo Clinic explains that combining protein with carbohydrates or caffeine-containing beverages can help slow digestion and moderate blood sugar fluctuations. Stable blood sugar reduces abrupt spikes and crashes that may otherwise increase stress hormone release. Caffeine stimulates the central nervous system and can increase cortisol levels, particularly when consumed on an empty stomach. Harvard Health notes that while moderate caffeine intake is generally safe for most healthy adults, responses vary, and sensitivity may increase with age. Elevated cortisol over time can influence inflammatory pathways and the hair growth cycle, as described in NIH-supported literature. Protein intake does not eliminate caffeine's effects, but eating protein alongside coffee may blunt rapid metabolic shifts that occur when caffeine is consumed alone. In simple terms, instead of sending the body into a fast alert state without fuel, you provide steady nourishment that supports tissues while still enjoying the beverage. Another consideration is muscle mass and overall aging. The NIH highlights that older adults experience gradual muscle loss, known as sarcopenia, and adequate protein intake plays a role in maintaining lean body mass. Muscle health, metabolic stability, and circulation are interconnected with overall tissue function, including scalp health. Good circulation ensures oxygen and nutrients reach hair follicles, which are among the fastest dividing cells in the body. If nutritional intake is inconsistent, follicles may become more vulnerable to miniaturization and slower growth cycles. It is important to clarify that adding protein to coffee is not a medical treatment for hair thinning, nor is it universally necessary. Individuals with kidney disease, metabolic conditions, or other health concerns should consult their healthcare provider before altering dietary patterns. However, reputable sources such as the Cleveland Clinic and Harvard Health consistently emphasize balanced meals with adequate protein as part of healthy aging. When coffee is paired with protein, rather than consumed in isolation, it shifts from being a stimulant-only habit to part of a supportive morning routine. Over time, consistent nourishment, stable energy, and reduced physiological stress may contribute to maintaining healthier-looking hair as part of overall well-being. Hair follicles are tiny but highly active structures that depend on steady blood flow and a stable internal environment to function well. Circulation is the delivery system that brings oxygen, amino acids, iron, zinc, and other nutrients to the scalp. Without adequate blood flow, even a nutrient-rich diet cannot fully support follicle activity. The World Health Organization, WHO, and the National Institutes of Health, NIH, consistently emphasize the importance of cardiovascular health for overall tissue function. While they may not focus specifically on hair in every guideline, the principle is clear. Tissues that receive consistent oxygen and nutrient supply perform better. Hair follicles are among the fastest dividing cells in the body during the growth phase, which means they require reliable circulation. As we age, blood vessel flexibility can decrease, and overall circulation may become less efficient, especially in individuals who are sedentary. This does not mean poor circulation directly causes hair loss, but it can influence how optimally follicles operate. Physical activity plays a meaningful role here. The WHO recommends regular moderate movement for older adults to support heart health, metabolic balance, and vascular function. When you engage in walking, light resistance training, or gentle aerobic activity, your heart pumps more efficiently, improving blood flow throughout the body, including peripheral areas like the scalp. Think of circulation like irrigation in a garden. When water pressure is steady, plants receive consistent nourishment. When flow is sluggish, growth may slow. The Cleveland Clinic also notes that regular exercise helps regulate inflammation and supports hormone balance, both of which indirectly affect hair health. Stress is another major factor. The NIH has published research showing that chronic stress can disrupt the hair growth cycle by pushing more follicles into the telogen or resting phase. This condition, often referred to as stress-related shedding, typically appears weeks or even months after a stressful period. Cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, is useful in short bursts because it helps mobilize energy. However, when cortisol remains elevated for extended periods, it can interfere with normal cellular processes. Harvard Health explains that chronic stress affects multiple body systems, including immune function and inflammation pathways. Hair follicles are sensitive to these internal signals. If the body perceives ongoing stress, it may shift energy away from non-essential activities like hair growth and toward systems necessary for immediate survival. Sleep further connects circulation and stress regulation. During deep sleep, the body enters a restorative state where tissue repair, hormone regulation, and cellular regeneration occur. The Mayo Clinic highlights the importance of adequate sleep for maintaining hormonal balance and cardiovascular health. Poor sleep can elevate cortisol and disrupt other hormones that influence tissue maintenance. Seniors often experience fragmented sleep due to changes in circadian rhythm, medical conditions, or medication effects. Over time, insufficient restorative sleep may contribute to systemic stress that indirectly influences hair shedding patterns. Sun exposure and vitamin D status are also relevant. The NIH notes that vitamin D plays a role in multiple cellular processes, including those related to hair follicle cycling. While safe sun exposure and dietary intake help maintain adequate levels, many older adults have lower vitamin D due to limited outdoor activity. Vitamin D is not a standalone solution for thinning hair, but optimal levels contribute to overall tissue function. In summary, circulation and stress management are interconnected pillars of healthy aging. Regular movement supports blood flow, stress reduction supports hormonal balance, quality sleep reinforces both. Reputable health organizations consistently emphasize these habits for cardiovascular and systemic health, and because hair follicles depend on the same biological systems as the rest of the body, they are influenced by these foundational lifestyle factors as well. The structure of your morning routine can significantly influence metabolic stability, hormone balance, and ultimately the environment that supports hair follicles. After waking, the body naturally experiences a rise in cortisol, known as the cortisol awakening response, a normal process that helps you feel alert. Harvard Health explains that this early morning cortisol surge is part of a healthy circadian rhythm. When strong black coffee is consumed immediately on an empty stomach, it can amplify this natural spike because caffeine further stimulates cortisol release. While moderate caffeine intake is generally considered safe for most adults, the Mayo Clinic notes that older individuals may be more sensitive to its cardiovascular and nervous system effects. Hydrating first with water helps replenish fluids lost overnight and supports blood volume and circulation before adding a stimulant. Proper hydration also supports overall cellular function, including nutrient transport to tissues like the scalp. Eating a balanced breakfast that includes protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates provides a steady supply of amino acids and micronutrients. As emphasized by the Cleveland Clinic and Harvard Health, protein is essential for tissue maintenance, and older adults often need consistent intake to preserve muscle mass and other structural proteins. Hair follicles require amino acids to produce keratin, and while a single meal does not determine hair density, daily patterns accumulate over time. When breakfast is skipped and coffee replaces food, blood sugar may fluctuate more dramatically. The Mayo Clinic explains that pairing caffeine with food can moderate blood sugar swings and reduce jitteriness or energy crashes. Stable blood sugar reduces the likelihood of reactive stress responses, which can influence hormone levels connected to the hair growth cycle. Iron and vitamin intake throughout the week also matter. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, highlights iron's role in oxygen transport through hemoglobin. Because hair follicles are metabolically active during the growth phase, they rely on adequate oxygen delivery. Low iron status has been associated with diffuse hair shedding in certain individuals. Including iron-rich foods as part of regular meals supports systemic oxygenation. Vitamin D, discussed in NIH resources, plays roles in immune regulation and cellular growth. Seniors are at higher risk for low vitamin D due to reduced skin synthesis and limited sun exposure. Maintaining adequate levels through safe sun exposure and balanced nutrition supports overall tissue health, though it is not a standalone solution for hair thinning. Sleep timing and circadian rhythm are equally important. The Mayo Clinic emphasizes that consistent sleep schedules help regulate hormones involved in metabolism and stress. Hair follicle activity aligns with broader biological rhythms. During deep sleep, growth hormone secretion increases, supporting tissue repair and regeneration. Chronic late nights, irregular bedtimes, and prolonged screen exposure can disrupt melatonin production and elevate evening cortisol levels. Over time, this hormonal imbalance may indirectly influence hair shedding patterns. Regular movement further reinforces the morning routine. The World Health Organization, WHO, recommends moderate physical activity for older adults to maintain cardiovascular health and circulation. Improved circulation supports nutrient delivery to peripheral tissues, including the scalp. Light morning walks or stretching can enhance blood flow without excessive strain. Consistency matters more than intensity, and the common mistake is viewing hair health as separate from general health. External products may improve appearance temporarily, but reputable institutions consistently emphasize foundational habits, balanced nutrition, hydration, sleep, and movement. When coffee becomes part of a structured routine, hydration first, nourishment included, consistent timing, it shifts from being a solitary stimulant to a supportive element within a stable daily rhythm. Over months and years, these steady habits shape the internal environment that hair follicles depend upon. Hair growth operates on a biological timeline that cannot be rushed because each strand follows a multi-month cycle governed by cellular activity, hormonal signaling, and genetic programming. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, explains that the anagen or growth phase of scalp hair can last several years, while the telogen or resting phase lasts several months before shedding occurs. This means that visible changes, whether thinning or improvement, often reflect events that happened weeks or even months earlier. When people expect rapid transformation, they misunderstand the physiology. Hair follicles are living mini-organs beneath the skin, and like all tissues, they respond gradually to internal conditions. Harvard Health emphasizes that sustainable health changes occur through consistent lifestyle patterns rather than quick interventions. This principle applies directly to hair. Improvements in nutrition, stress management, and sleep support the follicle environment over time, but they do not override natural aging or instantly reverse established thinning. Safety is equally important, particularly for seniors. Thinning hair can sometimes be influenced by underlying medical conditions such as thyroid disorders, iron deficiency anemia, autoimmune conditions, or medication side effects. The Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic both advise that sudden or severe hair shedding warrants medical evaluation to rule out systemic causes. For example, thyroid hormones regulate metabolism at the cellular level, and imbalances can disrupt the hair growth cycle. Iron deficiency, as discussed in NIH literature, reduces oxygen delivery to tissues, potentially influencing follicles that require high metabolic activity during growth. Because older adults are more likely to manage chronic conditions or take multiple medications, any significant change in hair density should be discussed with a qualified healthcare professional rather than addressed solely with dietary trends. Patience also protects against unnecessary supplementation or extreme interventions. The World Health Organization, WHO, consistently promotes balanced diets and physical activity as pillars of healthy aging. Excessive supplementation without medical supervision can create imbalances or interact with medications. For instance, very high intakes of certain vitamins or minerals may cause adverse effects rather than benefits. Reputable institutions emphasize moderation and individualized guidance. Hair follicles respond best when the entire body is supported. Adequate protein intake, stable blood sugar, sufficient sleep, stress regulation, and healthy circulation. These factors work together rather than independently. Chronic stress deserves special attention. NIH-supported research shows that prolonged stress can push more follicles into the resting phase, a phenomenon that becomes visible months later. However, once stress is reduced and internal balance improves, many follicles gradually re-enter the growth phase on their own timeline. This reinforces the concept of the long game. The body prioritizes essential survival functions before cosmetic ones. When it senses stability, consistent nourishment, predictable sleep, manageable stress, it reallocates resources toward maintenance and regeneration, including hair production. Understanding this timeline reduces frustration. Instead of searching for dramatic short-term results, focusing on sustainable daily habits aligns with what medical institutions consistently recommend for overall health. Hydration, balanced meals with adequate protein, safe sun exposure for vitamin D, regular movement to support circulation, and restorative sleep collectively create an internal environment conducive to healthier-looking hair. While these steps do not guarantee reversal of age-related thinning, they support the systems that follicles depend on. Viewing hair health as a reflection of whole-body wellness encourages informed, cautious decisions. Most importantly, any new dietary or lifestyle adjustment, especially for seniors with medical conditions, should be discussed with a healthcare